Well, good morning, church. In this series, The Orchard of God's Grace, we're bringing in other voices to help share their take on these different fruits of the Spirit. And one of the names that I came up with first, whenever I said I'd like to go find people to come here, or I can go there, or we'll find some way to co-preach, is Mark Beros. And Mark comes to us from southeastern Ohio, where he has served a church there faithfully for quite a few years and built an amazing ministry that I've been privileged to go up and actually visit them one time and really, really enjoyed it. And whenever I got in touch with a group of ministers and I said, which of the fruits of the Spirit would you like to talk about? Mark was the first one to respond, and he came back very quickly with patience. So I have to ask, why would you pick patience?
Well, I wanted to hurry up and pick that one.
Yeah, yes, evidently.
It's always required. It just seems that whether it's a project, a predicament, or especially with people, anytime two or more people are gathered, patience is required. We're all different people. We have different experiences, anything from our makeup or anything. And actually, Proverbs 19:11 says, a man's wisdom gives him patience. It's to the person's glory to overlook an offense.
Okay. I've noticed that people are different. You and I are very different. You're very much an extrovert. You're very much a people person. You connect very, very quickly. I run into a room quietly, very quickly. And so we are different, and yet we have connected. Mark was one of our first big fans of our Safe Harbor. I mean, very early on. And every Sunday morning, he texts me and tells me I'm going to do a great job. So that means he's not exactly a prophet, but sometimes it works. And we take a look at the gifts in Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12. The general rule, I believe, is that everybody gets at least one, but nobody gets them all. You look at the way our DNA is constructed, and if I could get started on DNA, I would just go for the next several hours. It is amazing. We are a complex creature, but we are individual creatures, and God created us in the womb to be different from each other, and that causes things to rub up against each other, and a need for patience.
It can. I mean, we're friends, but we're different, and we both have things to offer, and I think we can connect with folks, similar personalities as what you have, similar personalities as what I have. You connect with them. We see things differently. We have different life experiences, and that makes different outcomes where each of us has an opportunity to grow.
Well, speaking of different experiences, my religious past was all in one denomination, and a very strict form of that denomination. You had a more diversified. Do you feel comfortable sharing?
Oh, yes. I grew up Roman Catholic. Fantastic. I thank God I had parents that pointed me in a direction towards Jesus. 12 years of Catholic school, fantastic. Was an altar boy. I'm thankful that Mom and Dad said, look, we need faith as our grounding. Met my lovely bride, Angie, and of course, through our conversations and everything, get to know each other. Her background was the Church of Christ. I started attending with her, and man, it just took off. I still have my Bible that my mother-in-law, Angie's mom, Nana, got for me, and it's all beat up and everything, but I dug into that, and I sought a relationship with Jesus, where before my years I was going through religion.
Well, one of the things that I've always admired about you, and we're not on the notes, but we'll get there. I always like to have people prepare notes just so I can crush their little hopes.
You're so special.
Yes, that's what it said on the bus. Yes, you have an amazing love for people regardless of their religion or lack of, and are very, very open about the fact that you accept them as brothers and sisters. And that, to me, would require a great deal of patience, that it's easier to take a stand, and react against people. We can go through, You and I could have gone through the same experiences, and we would have had a different experience. You know, you see kids going to an amusement park. Some of them are having a great time, and some of them are terrified, and some of them are nauseated, but they're having the same experience. We tend to judge people by the way they react, and if it's not like we react, you know, we judge them. What I love, you may hate. What seems difficult to you may be tragic to someone else.
Right. Handling these experiences without being judgmental takes patience. We're called to be patient with each other. Matter of fact, 2 Peter 3 says the Lord's patience means salvation for us. And as I understand that, he gives us time to grow as we go. The Our Father or the Lord's Prayer. There's a verse in there that says, hey, forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. That takes patience.
It does. And the phrase or the verse that the patience of the Lord means salvation has actually been running through my mind a lot recently, because if I were God, I would have destroyed the planet long ago, or at least certainly the vast bulk of humanity, because that's what we're like. It's not because I'm particularly mean, cruel, or heartless. It is that we would run out of patience. We want God to be patient with us. We seem to resent him being patient with others. Once again, I think to be God-like, we have to work a lot harder at patience. You have, I'm not going to go through how you've learned patience. You and I have discussed things, but I would like to hear from you, and just freewheel it if you'd like. How can we help ourselves become more patient? What do we need to know? What have you found any tips or any strategies that work for you?
Sure have, and I'm still learning, and hopefully I'm growing as I go. I've learned to acknowledge that the world doesn't always dance in step with me. You know, the world is unfair. People can be cruel and frustrating. Matter of fact, I think Jesus told us in John 16, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world.
Well, I think God teaches me patience because I live in a town called Spring Hill. And a town where the city planners, the word planners actually has quotes around it in the official documents. Now that school is open, I have found that there is no way to escape. I have tried 3 different ways to get to Franklin from Spring Hill and found all of them choked. And the problem is, I'm part of the problem. I'm traffic. And so I get upset at traffic when I'm traffic. Patience is not something which is normal or natural for me, but it is something which God every single day finds a way. I walk a lot, and people in parks or the mall, wherever I am, like to get in front of me, go slow, and then weave. And I would like to brag about myself here. I have not physically harmed any of them, and I have refrained from screaming, "Pick a lane." It helps me remember I'm a creature, not the creator. I'm not God. And my opinions are not necessarily his, and many of his are not mine. I try to set a warning bell in my head from my old days as a therapist that I should not use words such as should, ought, must, never, have to. I really have to use that bell when I want to use those words about other people. And so it's one of my ways to develop patience is to actually set a warning bell when I say those words. If I'm referring to somebody else, that's an alarm.
Yeah, I'll pick up on that. Absolute words. I also find it useful to slow down before responding. John chapter 8, where the self-righteous mob brought the woman caught in the act of adultery, brought her in there, and Jesus bent down, and they said he started writing on the ground. You always hear the question, what did he write? What did he write? Rather than what did he write, what can we learn? What can we observe by how he handled that situation with the aggressors? He stands back up and challenges them. If those who don't have sin, throw the first stone. And I like it says, and they began going away, the older ones first, which hopefully with age comes maturity, comes patience. You can almost hear the rocks dropping. And again, rather than what did he write on the ground, let's see how he observed his aggressors. He slowed down before responding.
Well, and even there, the patience Jesus shows, he could have struck him dead. He could have stood up and gone all, Pharisee on them. Instead, whenever he asked the woman, who is here to condemn you, she says, no one. And he goes, I don't condemn you either. But what hits me is he also never condemned the men who brought the rocks. He did not attack them personally in any way. Instead, he just asked them, all right, go ahead, but the one without sin throws the first stone. Again, showing incredible patience. I think, I'll speak for me. I almost said you and I'll speak for me. If a woman were brought to me in that situation, I think I would become furious at the men and protective of the woman to the point where I would not have patience. God has patience, and he calls us to have patience, and then he shows us how to do it. I remind myself sometimes that although I'm by nature a quiet person, it's hard to believe because every time people see me, I'm talking. What they don't understand is if they're not seeing me, I'm not talking. But silence, acceptance, and tolerance are usually good ideas. I grew up believing that judging was a Christian duty. And so this is a big thing for me to work on: silence, acceptance, and tolerance. That requires patience. And our problem with patience is we want it now.
Absolutely. And some things can't be changed now. How about this? Let's seek to understand more than we demand to be understood.
Say that again.
Seek to understand more than we demand to be understood. Do I have all the facts correct? Is there some misinformation? John chapter 5. This is the healing at the pool. Jesus comes up upon a man, he's on his mat. And it says, when Jesus had learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? So what I understand from this, Jesus learned as he went through his years, just like us. That's why we can connect with him and he can connect with us. He grew and he learned. So seek to understand more than we demand. Do you ever talk to somebody and it seems like they're waiting for you to take a breath so they can jump in with something?
Oh, yeah.
Help me understand. Help me understand.
I spoke to some Navy officers well back in the day, and so I don't know if this is the process anymore or not, but one of them had gone from enlisted to officer, and I asked him about the process and what was the hardest, and I assumed it was the training. They have to go through a lot of running, and they have to go through a lot of physical and mental torture, basically, in officer candidate school. And he said, no, the hardest part was you come before a board, and there's a big clock behind them. And they say, we're going to ask you a series of questions. You are not allowed to answer the question until a full minute has passed. And then they look at him and they say, what is your name? And of course, most people immediately know. What they're doing is they're teaching them, we need you to think long and hard, even uncomfortably long, before you speak. Now, of course, in a battlefield, you don't want the minute to pass, but that habit of thinking first before speaking. And do you have all the facts? And when you and I talked about that, do you have all the facts? A story in my own past came up that I've not actually talked about before, but I was doing a youth rally. And when I do youth rallies, I do stories. And stories, you need a flow. You don't want them interrupted, right? Well, sitting on the front seat, it was a full house. One of the teens was noisy, interrupting me and the neighbors, was grabbing things, making noise, turning around, and it was very frustrating. And so I corrected them. Later, I found out that young man had autism. I didn't have all the facts. I had made a misjudgment and immediately was ashamed of myself, but there was no way to go back and erase that. Only God can sort those sort of things out. And so I failed. I hope I learned from it, but you never know till the next time.
How about this? Thank you for sharing that and being transparent with us during that situation. You know what? We all have bad days. Sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes it's others' fault. Sometimes God might be doing something that we don't realize at the time. John chapter 11, Jesus gets news that his dear friend Lazarus is sick. Yet he stayed where he was 2 full days. And it was, later we find out that it was within 2 miles. Now, Patrick, I'm out of shape, and you're a walker, and I'm not. But I think I could go 2 miles in 2 days. I really do. But you wonder, like, why did he stay? Because Jesus had to know, I could deal with this now. But he let the natural progression of natural things play out. Lazarus died. And I think later he was maybe preparing himself or others for a resurrection later to come. But think about it, he had to stay there. His dear friend Lazarus, I'm going to stay put for 2 more days. And in the meantime, people are saying, Lord, if only you. Yeah. How many times have we heard that, if only?
Yeah, to me, John 11 is unspeakably cruel. And I've been very open about that. We've talked about that in our midweek Bible classes. We've talked about that in sermons before as we've gone through it. I'm still very uncomfortable with it because not only could he have healed, he could have stopped the pain, he could have done all of these things, and yet, yes, maybe he was getting them ready for his death, his burial, his resurrection. Maybe he was making a point about who's master of Lord and master of death, which he would prove by the resurrection. But still, I doubt they understood it at the time. The lesson they had to learn benefits us, but it would have broken a lot of them. Their faith seems to be whole, but Mary and Martha seem very uncomfortable with what Jesus is saying to them. And then he forces them into more uncomfortable spots by saying, the person who believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? And immediately she goes, well, you know something? I think I hear my sister calling. She would like you to, I get that. One of the things that we have to deal with is death. We don't get the Lazarus ending. We get the Lazarus story. We're waiting on God to fix something, and he doesn't. And so we're stuck in the middle of John 11, having to believe that the rest of John 11 will apply to us. Now, you serve a brick and mortar church in a small town that you've made a huge impact. That congregation, I've known about that congregation since the 80s. And it has made a huge impact in a small town because of this. You at home don't know this, but I don't know how many times I've texted Mark and he said, I'll answer in a bit, I'm going in to do a funeral. How many funerals? Can you do a guess on how many you do routinely?
There's a lot. Of course, I keep my funeral notes in a file on the computer, and in that is the obit. It's the grave sides, the funeral, the eulogies, and there's close to 900 now. It's in the high 800s. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I would rather minister to families who are grieving rather than families at a wedding. At a wedding, I look at it, they're already on top of the mountain, and it's lovely and all this stuff, and you hope you don't run into a bridezilla. But at a funeral, I have an opportunity to take all the warm memories that the family gives me through the notes, through the interview, and bring it to the top and package it and give it back to them at a time when they're sitting here and their heads are nodding and they're going, yes, that's my love, is the funeral services. I've learned that people grieve differently. We don't all grieve the same way. We have different struggles. Every person feels lost differently. The famous comedian and actor Robin Williams, if I understand this correctly, his quote was, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about." And then Robin Williams ended his own life. So when we see folks, and I talked with a brother earlier here, there was a time, and I did this too, there was a time when I judged faithfulness by church attendance. Well, they're not here very often. They must not be very faithful. Mm-hmm. But we have no idea what that single mom is going through, what the single dad, what the unsupported spouse. We have no idea the turmoil and the conflict within the home. Maybe once a month, that mommy getting her kids there is all she can do. Mm-hmm. God bless her. So basically, remember, we all have bad days. Maybe a bad day, week, month, year. We all have bad days. We have to exercise patience.
Well, you just used an illustration of us using a human standard to judge somebody's soul. And we do that a lot. You know, when I was a boy, if we saw somebody, in a bar, or if they actually had a beer or something in their hand, immediate judgment. If they went to a dance, we were really strict. So if they went to a movie, if they played cards, we were 3 light bulbs for being Amish. We really, not to judge the Amish. The point being, we use human standards to judge others. And you live among the Amish there, up there too, by the way. I know that area. We're zipping through the notes, but we have a lot more time. And so I know you've got other things to say. One of the things about patience that I heard all my life growing up, which offended me on behalf of God, is people would say, well, if you ask God for patience, he's going to put you through some stuff. So be careful asking. And God is not Loki. He is not Zeus. He's not Apollo. He's not a trickster God. He loves us. And of course, it doesn't hurt to remind him that we're fragile, that we bruise easily. In fact, in my prayers, I very often start by saying, Father, talk to Jesus. It is hard down here. This is not easy. And it may be impossible for me to do this right. And then go from there and say, I know I need to be taught, but I want you to teach me very slowly, because I'm fragile. Whereas I know I should learn to bend, I fear I will break. I think it's fine to talk to God in these terms and ask him to be more patient with us. I think he does respond to that if we ask. At least he certainly has most of the time in my life. But I think we need to learn to be patient with God, which is a frustrating thing, but then patient with ourselves. I've often said, and the people at our house church here are probably tired of me saying it. They're tired of hearing it, but they're not done. That I'll look in a mirror and I'll think, I really thought I was going to be better by now. I thought I was going to be stronger. I thought I wouldn't be tempted as much. I thought that I wouldn't have these thoughts anymore. I thought that I would be more pleasant or under difficult circumstances. And it is hard not to let the devil then chime in and say, see, you're hypocrites, complete waste of time, you're done. Teach us slowly, God, but also help us not hear the voice of our enemy.
That's right.
What thoughts do you have about any of that?
I beat myself up. I'm a big critic. My personality is I would love people to like me, but there's a lot of people that don't like me, and that's okay. Jesus loves me, so we're good with that.
Well, it's not really okay. I get it too. Every birthday, I think one more year, still not universally loved.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you said that earlier, you said, I thought I would be better by now. Angie's thinking, I thought Mark would be better looking by now. But we're not going to get into that.
That peak passed some time ago.
I reckon so. Yeah. So, Patrick, I try to make it deliberately pray for patience. to actually set aside in my prayer time. And, pray for the fruit of the Spirit. We're looking through Galatians chapter 5. There's a verse in Luke, it's Luke chapter 5:16. Man, this hits hard. It says, Jesus often withdrew to lonely places to pray. Sounds pretty simple. But I've learned different people have different places, their quiet place. It may be a room or something, or craft room, music room, or whatever. It may be a deer stand, a turkey blind, a boat dock. For me, it's a tractor with a bush hog. And I like to mow. I get out there on my tractor, and I pray, and I think. And I, what do you call, ruminate, bring it up and chew it again.
You're in Middle Tennessee right now. We would love it if you could bring your tractor down here. But go ahead.
That's my prayer closet. But what I'm saying is be specific and ask God, help me grow in patience.
And that's a safe thing to ask.
Sure. Go to your quiet place. It may be a craft. It may be the recliner in your front room, or the glider or swing on your front porch. But in the days ahead, go to your quiet place, your lonely place, and just reflect on how God has been patient with us and how we can learn to be patient with others.
Well, I think, and I agree with everything you're saying, the way I would do it in particular is that I try to go through the day and notice the times I've needed him to be patient with me. And then I bring up the people I need to be patient with, or the situations. To me, more often, it's situations than people. The people are all right. I understand they're individuals, and I love the variety. I love the diversity. But it's the situation. This is not resolving. This is, there's a very famous book, Blue Like Jazz, written, I think, 15, 20 years ago, that talked about God is more like a jazz musician. Now, you're a musician. He was a drummer for a very long time, which makes me nervous because I've never met a time signature I would even pay attention to. And I've had conflicts with drummers, shall we say, because they believe in this mythical thing called rhythm. And I have rhythm. I can have 4 or 5 per song. I'm a very open individual. But the reason, the whole point of the book was, jazz doesn't resolve. And I'm a person that needs resolution. The song we sang this morning, well, Holly sang and I played, is supposed to end in an unresolved B minor 7th. I couldn't do it. I added the D because it's in the key of D, and it needed to be done and buttoned up and wrapped up and done properly, not hanging there unresolved. And yet life hangs out there in front of me unresolved.
It does.
And so my prayers are about specific situations that are not resolving. And I'm not afraid to say, I don't ask God to help me accept it. I tell God, I'd like that changed, please.
Yeah.
But if you're more specific, I think the prayer's more effective.
Yeah. And while we're on this branch, we'll shake this limb for a little bit. Thank you, Patrick. And thank you, our safe harbor here as well as around the world, for praying for my wife, Angie. Angie and I had Angie had a bout with cancer, and we requested that. Please pray for Angie, and she's doing fantastic. And talk about leaving something unresolved. Mm-hmm. When you get the C word, and your name is on that medical sheet, and it says, now we got treatments, now we got this, changes your world. You want resolution with that. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there are folks and brothers and sisters still going through ongoing stuff like that. But two parts there. Thank you for praying for us. Thank you. It's fantastic. She's doing well. And the unresolved sections of life can be frustrating.
They can be. And talking to her yesterday, she said that, I asked her how she's doing, and she goes, well, the doctor and I think we're fine, but we have 4.5 years to find out.
There it is.
And that's that B minor 7th hanging out there, or even a more complex chord. I don't play jazz because I only have these fingers, and I think you need 6 more. It hangs there. And I think it's important for the folk at home to realize the people speaking to them are sharing our frustrations, our unresolved tunes, that we're walking the same pathway they are.
Yep.
You know, when I was a boy, the minister was separated not just by being on a stage behind a pulpit, you know, normally a big, massive wooden thing, like he was captaining the Enterprise, but also because he never shared his faults, his sins, unless it was just kind of a little humorous thing. Yep. Whereas I prefer to say, no, we're bleeding and bruised too.
That's right.
We struggle too. You know, I was with a group of people yesterday that I was able to look at them and say, I fought depression all my life. Mm-hmm. And there are times depression won the round. Mm-hmm. And immediately a couple of others in the room said, we do the same. Exactly. And here's where we are. It's nice to know we're all on the same journey. And of course, the key is to be patient with the person who's not on the cycle you're on. You know, I beat depression. What about you? Well, that struggle. I really appreciate you being a part of this, for you making time to come down from the wilds of Ohio to the hinterlands of Middle Tennessee. And if I understand correctly, you're going to hang around in East Tennessee for a little bit.
We're going to go to East Tennessee after this and do some ministry over there. So we're excited. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm still learning at 65 years old, still learning, and you are a big part of that. Our church family here is a big part of that. It's fun to learn. I think so. It's fun to be transparent. You know what? It's okay.
I think
it's
so.
Okay.
And this is, I'll just, as a parting word, say, remember, we're calling this the orchard of God's grace. Trees grow very slowly. And orchards are some of the hardest things to establish because it'll take a lifetime. And there's an obvious metaphor there. This will take us a lifetime to get to a certain level. We will never master these things. What we can do is improve. And the grace of God takes us from there.
That's right. Amen.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Love
Appreciate
you.
it.
God
Love you
bless
too.
you.